All right, listen up, because I'm only gonna tell this story once. You think you know what it's like to be laughed at, to be told you're worthless, that your dreams are nothing but pipe dreams? Well, let me paint you a picture of what it's really like to have your family turn their backs on you, to watch them sneer and mock you as you chase after something they think is ridiculous. But remember, every joke has a punchline, and mine's a doozy. I was sitting in the boardroom, the cold fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, as the CEO of the prestigious environmental consulting firm I worked for leaned back in his chair, a smug smile plastered across his face. "You're fired, Jake," he said, as if he were announcing the weather. "Your little whistle-blowing stunt has caused enough trouble. We can't have someone like you on our team." I was dismissed for doing what was right, for standing up for the environment, for calling out the negligence that was destroying our planet. But to my family, it was just another example of my foolishness. They'd always mocked my passion for the environment, my dream of restoring neglected urban spaces. To them, it was just scavenging, a ridiculous pursuit for a ridiculous dreamer. I remember the day I told them I was quitting my stable job to pursue urban foraging and ecological restoration. My dad, a stern man with a heart as cold as his eyes, laughed in my face. "You're an embarrassment, Jake," he said. "You'll never amount to anything with these crazy ideas." My mom, ever the enabler, just shook her head, her eyes filled with disappointment. "Why can't you just be normal, Jake?" she asked, her voice dripping with disdain. "Why do you have to make things so difficult?" And so, with their words of derision echoing in my ears, I set out on my own, determined to prove them wrong. I started small, turning a neglected lot in the heart of the city into a thriving micro-ecosystem. I foraged for edible plants, restored native habitats, and created sustainable gardens. It was hard work, back-breaking at times, but I was driven by a fire in my belly, a burning desire to prove my worth. Years passed, and I watched as my projects began to gain traction. What was once a barren lot was now a lush oasis, teeming with life. People started to take notice, and soon I was approached by investors, by cities eager to transform their neglected spaces. I was on my way, and there was no stopping me. But I never forgot the words of my family, the laughter, the mockery. It fueled me, drove me to push harder, to achieve more. And so when I heard that my dad was sick, I knew it was time to go home. It was time to face the music, to show them what I had become. I walked into the house, the same house I had grown up in, the same house where I had been mocked and ridiculed. My mom was in the kitchen, her back to me as she washed the dishes. She turned around, her eyes widening in shock as she saw me. "Jake," she whispered, her voice barely audible. I nodded, a small smile playing on my lips. "Hi, Mom," I said, my voice steady and calm. She looked me up and down, taking in the changes. I was no longer the scrawny kid she had known, the one with the crazy dreams. I was a man, confident and sure of himself. "Where's Dad?" I asked, my voice gentle. She pointed to the living room, her eyes filled with a mix of fear and curiosity. I walked in, my heart pounding in my chest. There he was, my dad, his once strong body now frail and weak. He looked up as I entered, his eyes widening in shock. "Jake," he whispered, his voice hoarse. I nodded, a small smile on my lips. "Hi, Dad," I said, my voice steady. He looked me up and down, his eyes filled with a mix of pride and regret. "You look different," he said, his voice barely audible. I laughed, a soft, gentle sound. "I am different, Dad," I said. "I've achieved my dreams, the ones you and Mom mocked. I've turned barren lands into thriving ecosystems. I've restored life and hope to forgotten urban corners. And I did it all on my own. He looked at me, his eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry, Jake," he whispered. "I was wrong. I should have believed in you." I nodded, a small smile on my lips. "It's okay, Dad," I said. "I forgive you. But remember, every joke has a punchline, and mine's a doozy." And with that, I turned around and walked out, leaving them to ponder the consequences of their past derision. I had come home to prove a point, to show them what I had become. And I had done just that. As I drove away, I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction, of closure. I had achieved my dreams, I had proven my worth, and I had done it all on my own. And in the end, that's all that mattered. But as I looked back at the house, I couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness. I had come home to prove a point, but I had also come home to heal. And as I drove away, I knew that I had done just that. I had healed the wounds of the past, I had forgiven those who had mocked me, and I had shown them the power of belief and determination. And so, as I drove away, I knew that I had achieved something far greater than just my dreams. I had achieved redemption, forgiveness, and ultimately, peace. And in the end, that's all that truly matters. So, if you're out there chasing after your dreams, if you're being mocked and ridiculed, remember this. Every joke has a punchline, and yours could be a doozy. So keep pushing, keep fighting, and never ever give up. Because in the end, it's not about proving them wrong. It's about proving yourself right. And that, my friends, is the ultimate triumph.